have a system like Profit First, where if you just set it up the one time, it's basically now you just once a week look at your money and say, where are we? Then you can know, okay, am I on the right or wrong track? How much more do I need to make this month? And if hey, look at how much we're doing consistently now. Like, how much can I take home now? It's like, it's going to give you the power to move your money like you want to.
Hello again, and welcome to Levelin Up with Brigham Blackham. I'm your success story strategist. So grateful today to have David Richter. He is an amazing author of the Profit First method specifically for real estate investing. So Profit First, I mean, I've read that book. I literally have it right here. That was Mike Michalowicz, but you've got it for real estate investing. So this is perfect for my audience. So excited to tap into your knowledge and talk about the 3 keys, right? The 3 essentials to profiting first, specifically in ownership of rental properties and all these different things you do with real estate investing. So excited to have you on today. David, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. We met at the Money First Mastermind over in Salt Lake, ate dinner together, had an awesome experience. So tell us a little bit about your background, why you're so passionate about helping people understand this concept of profiting first, because so many entrepreneurs are just stifled in their business. And it seems like you're able to kind of flip that switch for people to help them see that there's another way to do things.
Well, my background is in the real estate world because right out of college, read Rich Dad Poor Dad and was like, I'm not going to do the typical route of the 9 to 5, get a job, all that. So was at a company because I was in my early 20s and really learning real estate there, but I worked for them for 5 years, and it was an awesome education being a part of that company because it was a real estate company doing like the fix and flips that you see on TV and the rehabs and doing some wholesale deals, a lot of different types of things. And we grew it to doing about 25 deals a month of where, that much was flowing through our hands. But at the same time, we were spending about 26 worth of deals out the door. So it's like, who cares if you make $1 million if you spend 1.1 to get there? And that was where my eyes were open to like, okay, it doesn't really matter how much you're doing if you're not bringing any home. Then I was also going to masterminds and events and other places too. And we weren't an anomaly. Like, even though there's these other high producing, companies out there and people we were rubbing shoulders with, I felt like it was like 99% of the people we talked to were in this exact same boat we were. Like, we're doing all these deals, but like, where's all the money going? They make money, but they feel broke. And I'm like, okay, this is not just me. It's an epidemic out there. So that's what really attuned me to that there's a real issue out there just for entrepreneurs with that mindset around the money. And so many people don't like the finances. They love the, run and gun it. Like, let's go do the deals, which is that's their superpower. And I totally understand that. I'm an entrepreneur, so I love that part of it. I love I want to go out there. I want to make something happen. I want to build a team. I want to help people. And usually, finances are like the redheaded stepchild, like we don't want to touch it or think about it. And that's where I felt like when I first read Profit First, because after a series of events there with that business, needless to say, that didn't have a happy ending. So we all went our separate ways, and I moved across the country and helped another entrepreneur and just helped him with some core things around the finances, even before I knew Profit First. And he told me that had been life-changing just to know some key things like what's coming in, what's going out, what's mine in this business. And once he said those words, like, I wanted to help people just get the clarity around their numbers. But then it morphed into a mentor saying you should read the book Profit First. And that's where it really took me and it shook me and said, oh my gosh, I wish I would have had a concept like this in the first real estate business. Because if we wouldn't have gotten to be upside down in our deal flow. We were doing so many deals and we were making so much money, but we were losing out on all that profit we were making. And that was like, oh man, I wish I would have had this back then. So that's what got me into it. And knowing that this is something that a lot of people struggle with. And I just wanted to help in a big way. And that's, after implementing Profit First successfully for about a year, reached out to Mike Michalowicz of Profit First and said, can I write Profit First for real estate investing? Got his blessing.
Awesome. And it sounds like this is not just something that you've noticed a few times. You've seen this in different mastermind groups. You've seen this in different entrepreneurs and the way that they're approaching their business. I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs are a little bit like me. We just want to go do the stuff. We want to go solve the problems, but doing the back end stuff with all of the numbers, it gets kind of frustrating. So tell us a little bit about why that is so important to have clarity in your business and your numbers.
Well, it's what you said right there. You are a problem solver. That is usually the entrepreneur's strength. It is
Mhm.
their superpower. Like I said, it's what keeps them out there, going and going hard, and like being that superhero. And the thing that drags us down, though, is usually the finances. You know
Yeah.
why? Because you're trying to solve all these problems, but you're not sure if you're solving the right one. It's
Mm,
usually solutions aren't the hard thing for an entrepreneur. It's asking the right question. And clarity with numbers gives you access to the right questions to ask yourself and solve the real issues that are going on in your business. Because if you don't have that clarity, it's always a gut feeling, and that might get you to a certain point, but that will not take you to be the business owner that you want to be, and get you as far as you want to go because you need to know exactly what's going on as that business owner. So I think that's a huge key there is like you don't want to slow down for the numbers, which I totally understand. What you want is here's the numbers and am I on the right or wrong track? If I'm on the wrong track, we got to make different decisions and that's different questions. If we're on the right track, it's the questions of how do we keep pouring fuel on this fire? So it's
mm,
that thing that I feel like most people want and never get. They try it with bookkeepers, with CPAs, with, they try just to say, here, you take this stuff and, maybe they look at a profit and loss every once in a while, maybe. And it's like, that's where they just want it handled. And then, let me go do my thing. Let me build this business. And what I don't like to see is what we were doing. We were building a business where as we were scaling, we were basically scaling ourselves into oblivion
mm.
because we weren't asking the right questions and didn't have that clarity. We were basically scaling ourselves out of business where which was why was this so eye-opening to me? Because when I helped that very first person who became the first client of the company I have now, he said the clarity has been life-changing because he said, now I have the power to make the best informed decision possible, to know my situation, what's unique about my business. He has kids at home, so he was like, how does this affect them and how do I set this up, for them and to be able to help them? It was those types of things that clarity unlocked for him. And so that's where I understand very deeply now that you need to stay in your superpower of doing the thing, of going out there and building the business and getting the deals in the door. And the finances just should be there to support you on that journey and not be this thing that weighs you down. So that's
Mm.
where having that clarity helps you put the, like on a plane, it gives you that lift. It helps you have the wind beneath your wings there versus it being drag and forcing you down or that headwind. I'd rather give you a tailwind and help you
Oh,
get to your goals faster.
that reminds me. So I have a background in Mandarin Chinese. I learned it as a missionary for my church, and there's this analogy that I think is beautiful. Whenever you're talking about learning any new skill, specifically a language, imagine a window that's just absolutely covered in mud. You can't see through it, right? You start moving it a little bit.
Yeah.
Every time you start to get a little bit uh, of that clarity, the mud gets thrown back on there because you don't quite understand it. But as soon as you're able to clearly articulate what it is that you mean, and you start to go through that window and be able to have that transparency, that clarity, you start washing the window. Basically, it goes from completely muddy to maybe a little murky, and then as you wash that window, you get more articulate, more clear. You're able to see and make better decisions. And I
Yeah.
think people stop worrying about what you're saying and they start worrying about how you are communicating with them and what you're actually trying to say. And I think that's one of the values of really understanding your numbers. You know your numbers, you do the math, and then the math will tell you what to do. So for you, David, what was one of those patterns of progress? One of those things you're like, man, most business owners just get into this pattern and it takes them and derails them. What are those patterns of progress to say, hey, this will help you stay on the right track and recognize
Yeah.
the right information?
First, I would say, a lot of people get derailed because they're putting fuel in a plane that's going down. Like if we want to keep using
Uh,
that analogy, it's
I like
like they just keep throwing the money out the door in marketing or people or all these different solutions that they're trying to, and it's literally just burning up their cash. So that's how a lot of people get derailed. So if you can get that clarity, usually we like to start a lot of people, like we said here, a cash flow system like profit first. If an owner can understand the three most important numbers in their business, what you make, spend, and keep, like if they can get a handle on that, that's where they can start to understand, okay, am I on the right track or the wrong track? And if I'm on the wrong track, what questions do I need to ask myself to get to the right track? But that's where just giving them a good framework, and that's where profit first or a lot of cash flow systems give that clarity of cash, because that's no matter what, whether they've tried getting clarity with a bookkeeper before or with someone else, it's like they're still going to manage the cash. The dollars are going to flow through the bank account no matter what. Money's going to come in and then they're going to spend money. So like
yeah.
that's what management is at the end of the day. So if we can give them just a very, very simple way of this is what's coming in, this is what's going out, this is what you get to keep. A lot of people just don't even have that clarity or peace of mind of what their business is actually doing. So that's where we usually start to get them back on the right track, because if they can get those three numbers and a grasp on them, that starts, like you said, put them on at least on the right track, or starts to clear the window at least. Or, if we keep that plane analogy, it's like their dashboard lights, they were all off, and like now we're switching them on so they can see
I
where,
love it.
like where are we right now? Like, are we flying upside down about to crash into the ground? Or like, are we like, yeah, where are we right now? So that helps to like flick those dashboard lights on and get them to where they want to be and exactly know where they are right now today. Whether it's a fun story or not so fun story, it's like having the clarity to know where I am. And that's where we start, is with those three most important numbers in their business. And that usually helps the entrepreneur right away.
I love it. So when you're really delineating, hey, these are the three essentials. Said what they make, what they spend, and what they keep. What are the things for those that like maybe they don't have quite the money yet to pay for a CFO to
Yeah.
really help them delineate this? What is the things that you can help them say, hey, get clarity on these numbers or this specific element, and then you'll
Yeah.
be able to make better decisions.
That's why I wrote profit first, because not everyone can work with us. Now, we make it affordable because we're a part-time CFO. So if you're making like $300,000 in top line in your business, like revenue, then we can start to help you there. But if you're below that, like I have the book, the podcast, like just to give you the core principles of how do I understand where my money's coming in, going out? Because at the end of the day, profit first is a very simple cash flow system. It's based on the envelope method. You
Mhm.
literally are setting up bank accounts and naming them. You're being intentional with every dollar that comes in the door, and you're giving every dollar a name. So that's where profit first, I would say, start there with the basics of what you can handle, which is very simple and will not take you much time during the week. Like if you have a system like profit first, it could take you 15 minutes or less a week, and you don't have to think about your finances, every single day. It's literally like once a week, money comes into this account and I spread it out over these other accounts and I'm naming the dollars. And then from there, I can go and get more dollars to come in the next week. So I have more to disperse and more to, transfer. So that's, if you're just starting out, I would start off with that, because in there also gives you good money habits that a lot of business owners don't have. So if you're newer in your journey, you actually have an advantage, is that you haven't built a seven-figure business on bad habits yet.
Mm.
And it's like, if you could get good habits with your money, that save you from seven figures. If you're like, oh shoot, I'm in seven-figure territory and I've made bad decisions with the money, or I don't like where I am, or I'm spending too much time still in my business versus on my business, I don't have the team that I want, I don't know where my money's going. That's where we can start to come into play and help you and take a lot of that just off your plate for you, because there's been probably bad habits up to this point, but you just weren't aware because no one's taught you. No one teaches this stuff either. Like, so it's like literally there is a huge excuse that you can use, is that this is not really taught. And even if you search for it hard, like maybe you find profit first and get the first few steps. But if it's not your expertise and it's not your superpower, then you're going to end up like I hear all the time with these business owners on their journey, like, oh, I started profit first and then I never did anything with it past the first couple times. Or like I set up the accounts and like I, separated them out and started to name the money, but then I stopped doing that. It's like, that's where you might have to have someone as you grow, hold your hand and make sure that your systems are working for you and not against you. But when you're first starting out, I'd start out with the book and some of the just core principles and like the core accounts, of the profit first system. That's where if you're starting out versus if you're down the road.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. And you think about how simple it can be, even when you're a kid, getting those envelopes and saying, hey, this is my tax envelope. This is my profit envelope. This is I can't get rid of these expenses because it's my overhead. And you literally you already pay those bills anyway. You might as well say, hey, this is all you get this month. And if you don't have enough, go make some more sales.
Right. Yeah. And at the beginning, you have to be focused on just revenue producing activities all the time. Screw a website, screw all the fancy stuff, screw the colors. Like, I don't care about any of that. Can you make a deal happen? Can you can it become consistent? Like, are you able to go out there and talk to people and do the deals and like make sure that you have consistent revenue? Because even if you build a website or operations and like procedures and all that, none of that matters if you don't have money coming in the door. And that's where, if you have a system for the money that doesn't take much time at all, and there's even banks out there that help you automate some of this stuff, it's like, if you have some of that in place, you can just focus your time and attention on what you're good at as the entrepreneur, building the business and building the sales, like making sure you have sales in the door. So that's where I just tell a lot of people, like, start there and make sure you keep revenue in that first position, and make sure that you're also, if you're going to do that and get revenue in the door, have a system like Profit First, where if you just set it up the one time, it's basically now you just once a week look at your money and say, where are we? Then you can know, okay, am I on the right or wrong track? How much more do I need to make this month? And if hey, look at how much we're doing consistently now, like how much can I take home now? It's like, it's going to give you the power to move your money like you want to, versus it just comes in and it goes out, and then you end up with a black hole account where it's like, it's the swirling vortex of doom out there. And like, where did all the money go?
I think one of the biggest reasons why this is impactful is you build more confidence when you know where your money's coming and going. And with confidence, it comes with competence over time. As you build competence and say, hey, this is where my money is going. And you're not saying, where did my money go? You're saying, this is where you're going. And you choose it. It gives you the autonomy to say, you know what, this month I'm going to take a little bit less in this section and I'm going to place it here so we can grow. Or maybe like, you know what, I'm not going to focus on growth as much this month. I'm going to focus on making sure that this debt service goes down so that we can increase my bottom line. And sometimes if we don't focus on those small little things, you're actively scaling chaos.
Right.
I think scaling chaos is only going to work until you can no longer handle the chaos, and then you're done.
Right. Yeah.
So getting that clarity, I shared this idea because I've been going through a health transformation right now, and sometimes you go fast, and literally when you're fasting, like you have to say, hey, I'm choosing not to eat this and this and this so that I can kind of reset where I'm at. There are times in my business where I'm like, I am choosing not to spend anything for the next week, period, so that I can get my cash flow back in place. And it's hard. Like sometimes it's like, oh, I want to pay that person. Like, hey, are you going to pay me now? You're like, in a week, I will do that. And sometimes you have to figure out, is this something that is going to help you go farther? Because going on like a little expense fast, that is maybe not the best way to do it, but it is a way that you can be really conscientious. All right, where is my cash flow going? And I like in that book, one of the things that I thought was interesting is like, hey, can I go another day without buying that thing? I thought that was such a good little insight. Sometimes we're like, well, I really want that. Like, but do you need it for your business right now? Is that going to actually be a revenue generating activity, or is this something that's nice?
Right.
Can you go another day? Do you have any other principles that are similar to that? Specifically with real estate investing that you think, hey, I need to share this because this is so good. I can't not share it.
one of those principles that comes up is Parkinson's law. Like if you spread out your money over different accounts, then you're not as tempted if you have one big account and you say, "Oh, I could spend the money," because it's easier to spend it when it's just sitting in one big account and it's all right there versus it's spread out and you don't have as much to spend when you chunk it out and you name those dollars. So if you have a spend account versus what you make and what you keep, it's like, okay, well, I'm only going to take my keep as like for what I want to pay myself and maybe like for the bonus on a quarterly basis, but I'm not going to touch that. To go and spend the money on, something out there. That's literally what it's for, is to keep the money like for myself. And then a spend account is more like, okay, this is the money that I can spend and invest in my business. And now it's more intentional. So if you start to spread that money out, you don't have as much just sitting in one place that's as tempting. And then there's also those especially in Mike's book, he hits this pretty hard. If you have those accounts that you set up that they're not even at your normal bank, like you set them up at
Oh
a
yeah.
different bank that's like, no online access and you have to walk into the bank, and that could be like a profit or a tax account, something that you don't take as often, but it's like helping you establish discipline, because that's what money takes. When you want to build a business, that is one of the biggest things the business needs, is the discipline of the owner, the discipline to make the sales consistently and get the marketing up and running, but also the discipline of, I know what I'm doing with the money too, and I know where the money's going. So that's where, if you need like some added discipline that's like built in as a system, that's where he's like, set it up at a different bank and make it harder to access so you aren't tempted to just steal it like so many people are. They rob Peter to pay Paul, and then they end up, well, like you said, they're just scaling chaos because they're just really good at moving money all the time. And sometimes it's not their own. Especially there's one for the real estate investing audience, is it's easy, especially if you get private money directly sent to you. If you have one big bank account and you get other people's money sent to you, it's easy to say, "Ooh, look at all the money I have," and just go a little bit crazy of like, "Oh, now I can spend the money on this stuff and that," or you forget that that's for the project, or like how much is left for the project or whatever that you're working on. And then you're like, "Oh shoot, I don't have enough money to finish the project." And so then you have to go and get money from someone else, and then you're in a Ponzi scheme, like of your own creation. And that's where, if you have the other accounts and you have a good system for your money, especially in the real estate world or anywhere where you get money directly from other people, you can set up like an OPM account, other people's money. So that way you can see, this is what people gave me that are for specific projects or things here that aren't for me to just spend on the daily expenses of the business. So there's some principles that will help if you can just get some of the, like I said, the core foundation set up. And if you can know those things and get that in place, then these are some of the things that help you to either create more discipline or to help you not create Ponzi schemes in your business. Being able to get that, like you said, the confidence, but also a big one we hear is peace of mind. Knowing that I've got business financial peace of mind. I know where my money is. I'm not touching it for the wrong reason, or I know exactly what I need to do, even if it's not fun. Like you said, I need to go on an expense fast because like I can't spend the money this week because we overspent last week, or that property didn't close last week like it was supposed to. It's closing next week now. And like once that closes, then we can start the flow again. But it's helping you make better informed decisions.
Yeah. One of the other things that just popped into my head is there are times that when you have an increased knowledge, you are able to make better decisions.
Yeah.
And I'd say most of the time that's the case. There are strategies that you're like, hey, I want to use all of this money that I possibly can to pay down debt or to create an opportunity. And if you are not intentional with understanding where your money is, then that can actually kill a business. If
Oh
you
yeah.
overspend in one specific thing, you're like, hey, I'm out of debt, but now you don't have any revenue because you didn't market at all this last 3 months.
Right.
You're like,
Yeah.
shoot. Now, when you keep things in balance a little bit more, it's kind of like spinning plates. Like, all right, now this is working. All right, now I'm going to go to the next one. I'm going to make sure that this is working. I love this idea from Profit First. I think is really helpful. When you are choosing uh, what to assign as far as your accounts, to create small dishes rather than one really big dish. And that was that
Mm-hmm.
idea. Huge
Yeah.
account versus like smaller accounts. Can you
Yep.
talk to us a little bit about how the small dish principle,
Yeah.
so you actually eat less because those accounts are smaller, how that applies to real estate?
Yeah. So a lot of people, like I said, have the one big bank account, and if you equate that to a dinner plate, if you have, it's that those are studies that are out there that if you have a bigger dinner plate, you fill up that plate and you'll eat whatever's on it. So if you have smaller plates, you fill it up with less and you eat less calories, and you're not filling up as much. And that's the same principle with profit first and with the money, is that if you spread out the money into different bank accounts, then you have different you have the different accounts that hold the money, so it's less in just one big one. And that's the same thing for real estate. And even profit first at the core, the principles are the same no matter the industry. If you have the same core accounts, like the make, spend, keep, like I know what's coming in, I know what's going out, and I know what I get to keep. If you have those core ones, that at least helps you separate into three buckets: what's coming in that I get to transfer to spend, but also what I need to keep as well too. And I usually like to break keep into need and want. What do I
Mm,
need in order to survive and put food on my table? And what do I want? Why did I start my business? I shouldn't do that. I want to then fund an account for why I started it. There was a guy I was at an event this week, and he was with his wife there, and they both work in the real estate business. And he said, she's in this business and we're going well, and we've got profit first set up. And she's like, he said the next big thing she wants is a pool. And I'm like, just create a pool account, like, so that way you can start saving money. And she sees it tangibly. And he's like, oh man, he's like, I'm going to go tell her, like, we should do that right away. And I'm like, that's the power of setting up those small plates, because even if it's just a small slice off your next deal, at least you're putting something in there and you're showing her that, hey, I care about what you want, but then we're also saving up for a bigger expense, because it was like a nice in-ground pool. It was going to cost like $80,000 or something. It was like a big expense for him. So he was like, if I could just start doing that off of every deal, that would be huge. And I'm like, exactly. It's that small plate principle. Is if you split it up into the smaller plates, you get to also decide what those smaller plates are named. And you get to be able to, for your business, what does that mean to you? Keep to you might mean a pool at the back of your house, but it also might mean traveling the world, or it might mean sending your kids to a great college, or it might mean whatever that is for you. But just that being intentional is a great principle. And like I said, that's not just for real estate, that's for anyone else. But if you're in the real estate world, your plates might look a little different. It might be, if you have rentals, it's PITI, like, do you know your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance? Because that's like cash out the door every single month. Even though it lands fun, all those different things land funny in behind the scenes and like QuickBooks and all that, which I don't want to get into at all. But it's like all that lands funny back there. But if you have an account to know, what am I paying for every single property, the principal, interest, taxes, insurance? So it comes in, here's my PITI for my portfolio over the whole month. Then you can see, here's what I get in rents. Here's what has to go out the door in order for me to keep the property. And what am I left with? So it's like using that same principle just for your industry, though, of whatever you're in, and knowing, how does this affect me? And if there's, like I said, for the real estate industry, there's definitely the nuances. It's like tenant deposits. If you have tenants, and if you're doing fix and flips, having your own reserve account to like cover the budget when it gets blown for a fix and flip. It's like knowing that you have the cash on hand when you need it, especially for those industries that are cash intensive. But I would just say it's still those core principles that help you, especially that small plate principle. So you're not especially spending the money that someone else is for a specific project.
I love it. Now, one of the things that just came to mind, because I was just reading in Matthew today in the Bible, talked about the talents. There's this parable of the talents that Christ gives, where there's people that are given 1 talent and 3 talents and 10 talents.
Yeah.
And when you hide that talent, it's an expensive. When I say a talent, I'm talking not just necessarily like what your skills are. I'm actually saying like something that's of value. When you hide that talent, you bury it, you don't make any value for anybody else. It's kind of like just saving it and like, oh, I'm going to use that some other time. You get scared because of all these different things. But the person that goes out there and he has the 10 talents and he goes and creates more talents, that's who is given the 1 talent that the guy hid. And I think sometimes when we are creating value in business and we're consistently doing it, whether it's at a 10 talent level or a 3 talent level, if we're consistently doing that, eventually we're going to gain that market share, because people know, like, and trust us, and they're ready, able, and willing to do business with us. So for you, what is that idea of not burying your talents, but actually going and expanding the value you create in real estate investing and in business? What does that mean to you, David?
Hmm. Well, how do I want to take this? Because in the concept that we're teaching today, of knowing where your money's going and like being a good steward, like most people with their finances just bury their head in the sand because they don't know anything different. They're just like, let me go and make the money and I don't need to think about the money, like ever. And I don't want to talk about the finances. I don't know. I want to know if I'm on the right or wrong track even. Like I just want to go out there and do deals. And I think that's taking a talent and burying it, because if you're a business owner, that's a different identity than just real estate investor or baker at a bakery shop. It's like, if you're a business owner, you have the mantle of marketing, sales, operations, and finance, like at least knowing those. So I feel like if you're going to not do anything with your money, that is like burying it. And then you will stifle yourself. Like for us, we were doing 25 deals a month, but had to shut that company down because we basically buried our talent. Like we didn't know that we were spending that much until it was too late. And then we weren't asking the right questions to get ourselves out. And like, then it went down and it's not doing like that guy still owns that company, but he's maybe doing a few deals, a shadow of what was happening before. And it's like, yeah, that's not helping all those people. That was a lot of properties we were buying. That was a lot of people we were putting in properties or fixing up and making the area nicer. And it's like, it depends on, like you knowing like, okay, if I'm a business owner, what do I at least need to know at the minimum in order to be a good steward of this town, of what I have that's of value out there? Because like I said, if your talent, that value you bring to the marketplace is doing deals, don't let the money slow you down from doing deals then. Like that's where a lot of people get in their own way, just because they neglect an area that is so key to their success and honestly to the people around them. Think about it. How many people mind a business owner touch? It's the business owner and their family, anyone that they employ in their family. If it's let's say a real estate investor, it's like if they have private lenders, they're helping those private lenders make money, and then those families benefit from that. If they're flipping houses, it's the families that go in that either come out because it was a headache and they couldn't sell it on the market, for retail, and they had to get an investor to actually buy because it was just a beat up junker or is an inherited property or something they didn't want to mess with. So that family's affected. And then on the other side, it's like if it's fix and flip, it's not only the family that gets to go in it, it's the neighborhood. It's it's everything is raised from there. So it's like, how many people do you touch? And if you're not able to go and help now anymore, like that is like burying your talent there, and you won't be able to help and not even invest it to be the 3 or 10. And that's where I feel like in the finance, we don't get a lot of education. We don't get a lot of, the help and the knowledge. That's why I really wanted to create a company that was different too. That wasn't just a bookkeeping company, like, because I feel like that's an issue too. Because a lot of people think that, oh, I'm not burying my talent in the sand. I gave my books over to a bookkeeper, and like they're going to help me. And like the CPA, they'll tell me what I made at the end of the year or whatever. I'll like have my once a year check-in. And that's not being a good steward of what you're being entrusted with. If you're going to make money, you got to have those systems, and you got to know on a weekly basis, am I on the right or wrong track? Because it also says too, after a while, like the master came back. So that was in the ground for a while, and those other people were making the money for a while. And it's like, if you just bury it for a long time, it's like it's not helping anyone for a long time, where the other one is growing. It's growing and it's helping and it's expanding. So that's where so many people trap themselves by not understanding and not having a good grasp. And like you said, you even mentioned at the very beginning, that superpower is being a problem solver. And if you're not solving the right problems, you're not providing the value that you could be, whether it's for yourself and your own business or the people that you touch with it. So I feel like that's what that story means to me.
I love that. Great explanation. One of the things that popped out to me while you were speaking is being a great steward. And I recently had an experience where we had some babysitters, because I've got 4 kids, right? Sometimes you just have to go on a date. You have to get babysitters. We had these two cheerleaders that were babysitting all 4 of my kids, and then the 3 kids of my my brother-in-law while we were going to a movie premiere.
Yeah.
that myself and my wife were in as extras, and we were supporting my brother-in-law. But it reminded me, if I had a babysitter that only checked on my kids one time during the 5 hours that we were gone, is that being a good babysitter or a good steward? That would be awful. The kids would probably, right? They would be all over the place. The house would be horrible. And I realized that sometimes if we just check on our finances, once a year, that is like being an awful babysitter. And you think about it, we are entrusted to be stewards over our money. And the better stewards we are, the easier it is for people to say, oh, you're going to employ this money well.
Yep.
You're going to go out and it's going to come back with friends. There's a trust factor there. But if you are a poor steward, that money comes into your hands and then it just goes away. How often are people going to want to lend you private money to do a fix and flip or to do anything with real estate? I'm talking about people's lives. Like, you think about how easy it is to get private money because it's secured by real estate. It's backed, and it's still a risk that they take. Yeah. Even though it's a much less risk than most investments because you have a physical, tangible asset. If you screw up as a real estate investor, it can be tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it can take years to come back. So being a good steward, just like being a good babysitter, it is imperative. So for you, what would be one caution, like something that you're like, hey, this is a red flag in your business, specifically for those that are maybe a little bit newer to this idea of profit first, that you'd say, hey, be very cautious with this type of thing that's happening in your business?
Well, I would say number one, like you just said there, is there's a lot of uncertainty in a business owner's mind around money. So I would find someone that you do know, like, and trust to help you with that and guide you through that. But then also, just on the general spectrum of most business owners, no matter what industry you're in, it's usually marketing and people. Like, those are the two expenses that are going to go crazy, hog wild for you at some point. You're like, hey, I need to pour more into marketing because it is working, or like, hey, we're having slow months, so like we got to pour some more into that, in order to grow it. Or it might be the people, and you scale up too quickly on the people side where they might be taking some stuff off your plate, or it might be the wrong hire and like they're not taking stuff off your plate, and then you have to try and get rid of them. It's those types of things of how, when should I scale? What should I do? And that's why I do like profit first, from the aspect of it gives, when like the percentages that you should be doing for those different accounts, and the bigger you get, the percentages change of like, because then you'll start hiring people. So it kind of gives you a mini roadmap of when should I start investing in people, or like investing more into the marketing side. But that's where up front I would be very careful, because it's usually the marketing and people that are going to be the biggest expenses, but they can also be your biggest returns too. Because that's, so the marketing obviously get deals in the door, and then people on your team is, if you're going to go and build a business, that you'll need people there. It's not going to be this Lone Ranger type thing out there in the wilderness. You got to go out there and you got to help people as well too on the journey, and they're going to help you. And that's where you're going to have to be very careful of that. So those would be the two things that I'd be looking at constantly, is like, what percent of my overall sales is my marketing, and what percent of my overall sales is my, that I'm pouring into my people as well too. Because if those get out of whack, like if either one are over 50%, you might not have a bottom line. Like if you're spending more than 50% in either area, you're probably either upside down or very close to just breaking even. And that's where we just see that all the time. Marketing should be about 20 to 30%, depending on what you're doing in which industry you're in and whatever. Like, you should be getting at least a 3, 4, 5x return on the dollars that you're spending. And then for people, that really shouldn't go above 30, and that may be stretching it to 35%, as you grow and scale. So if you can keep them below those numbers, you'll be pretty healthy as you grow. If they start to get out of control above those, then that, hey, okay, what's going on here? Like, something needs to change. And that's a good question to ask yourself. What needs to change? Like, if we do get those 3 more deals to close this month or this quarter, will that drive down those percentages and I am okay? Or if I don't get deals in the door like that, the percentages are going to be upside down. Do I need to make changes, because I would have to change my business overall, because I've never done X amount of deals before, X amount of sales in a month. So I'd have to change it fundamentally. So it's those types of questions you can ask yourself if you've got a general idea of where are these two biggest expenses that I know I'm going to have as a business owner?
I love it. And really, this is getting down to, you want to work on your business, not just in your business. And I think that's where that clarity element comes in, and being willing to say, am I asking the right questions? And if not, do I have a mentor, a coach, someone that can help me take those blinders off and recognize what are the questions I need to ask? I think one of the best ways you can go and find mentors is by reading books like what you wrote, finding ways that you can open up your eyes to new possibilities and be overflowing with information that is applicable. Because I love the way that that knowledge helps us think at a higher level. But you think about it, if knowledge was all we needed, all librarians would drive Lamborghinis.
Right. Yeah. No kidding.
I got that quote from Steve Larson, who's one of my buddies. And
that's great.
So true. It's not knowledge, it is the application of that knowledge. Even if all you got from this, guys, everyone that's listening, if all you got from this was, I want to take my money and put it into smaller plates, little envelope style checking accounts, and that's all you did, do it. And then see what comes from it. There's an expression in, and I guess not even just an expression, there's a model in teaching. You think about it, you do it, and then you review, how did it go? And sometimes we have coaches that help us think about it at a higher level, ask the right questions, because thinking is just asking questions and answering questions. So David, if I could have you kind of summarize all of these points, the 3 essentials to profit first, how would you summarize our conversation? What would be the thing you're like, man, this is the point?
Number one, I would say you need to split that money out, like get a system in place so you can start building good habits with money. Number two, it's once you have it split out, you get that clarity. So you know exactly what's coming in, what's going out, what am I keeping? And then number three, I would keep it on track of knowing like consistently, what am I doing at? What am I making, spending, keeping? Am I on the right track? Because like you ended there with that other question is what should I be looking at? And I told you the different marketing and the, and the people, I would say, okay, if we're on track or if we're off track, what decisions do I need to make? Because then once you have the clarity of what's coming in, what's going out, you get to make better decisions. So at the end of the day, though, if I could add like 3B or like in number 4 is that if you hate doing that, get someone in your corner that can help you with that. If you're just getting started, you might only be able to afford a bookkeeper, because if you're just getting started, it might be, $20 a month or so, like just to get whatever you're doing at the very, very beginning when you're just getting off the ground. But it's like, get someone in your corner that can help you with that, especially if that's not your strength or your superpower. If you're out there, the visionary, the entrepreneur, the one getting the deals in the door, you might need someone in your corner as well to help you. That would be, I would say, like the 4th essential is if you aren't good at those, getting the numbers in the door and don't want to do that, get someone that is, but that you meet with more often than once a year. Someone that has your best interests. So
I love it. You over delivered on that. I love it. That's one of the ways you're an entrepreneur is you're like, hey, here's the minimum. You're like, we're gonna over deliver under promise. So I love that. Thank you so much, David, for being with us, sharing some great insights. Guys, go get his book. Where do people find that?
You could go to either my website, simplecfo.com, there, and you can get the book, or you can listen to the podcast, because then I've read some of the book there. But then also, if you just go to Amazon, if you want the print version, is on Amazon.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, David, for sharing such awesome information. And guys, this is completely practical. Even if all you did was just figure out, hey, which accounts do I need to take and make? I hope you go and take some action off of what we did today. Thank you so much, David, for sharing. So much fun. I had a blast. And with that, guys, keep leveling up your life. Remember to like and subscribe. Give us a review if this was valuable for you. If you didn't like it, just don't tell anybody. No, it's good. Have a great day, guys. God bless.